So, uh, like we mentioned, I sound super fancy. That's pretty cool. The main things that you should know about me, I based in Atlanta. I've been at Zendesk for a long, long time now. Before that, I was a customer of Zendesk when I was at a startup as well. I'm not a founder, but I've worked with many, many founders, so I understand all of the intricacies at every stage of the journey. You all are doing some really amazing things, and I also like to point out some of my favorite new emerging industries. One of the things that I really enjoy in my space at Zendesk right now, working with founders from the larger customer success and retention organization, I get to see all of the emerging industries before they become a thing. So for example, like in our startups program, we saw Bitcoin and NFTs and crypto and AI. We saw that at least 2 years before it started hitting the mainstream. So it's really interesting to see just literally the burgeoning like the origin of where the market is going. So for me right now, I look at a whole bunch of fintech companies and I see these great people, these founders that are recognizing, that we need better ways of helping people build credit. We need better ways of helping people build generational wealth. And I think that's so cool. Just, my background coming from a single parent who, let's just say, didn't teach me those things. And then, also seeing the creator economy and seeing people just take ownership over their own personal brand and being able to monetize that in ways that help people, but also just very interesting ways. So seeing something like an economy grow up around that in a way similar to the way that an economy grew up around the App Store on the iPhone, very fascinating. I think we're going to see some interesting stuff coming out of those two places. And the other important thing that you should know about me is that I am obsessed with movies. I am obsessed with television. I will bake a better pie or a cake than any of you. It's not a judgment call. It's just a fact. And I am obsessed with Red Bull. Don't leave home without it. I've bought a lot of left front tires for the Red Bull Formula One team. So now that that's out of the way, happy to meet all of you. Can't wait to hear all of your origin stories. And we'll get started. We'll get started with the question of the day. And as we're going through this, just know, like, this is going to be a fun session. This is going to be interactive. I want you to use the chat. I want you to share fun things. And at points, we're probably just going to be going off mute and shouting out. So I wanted to leave a lot of time for discussion towards the end. And just know that's how it's going to go. But for right now, anybody have an idea of what the answer might be here? How do you know when you're a founder or someone that just has a good idea? Feel free to either put it in the chat or, if you're feeling squirrely, go ahead and put yourself off mute. Nobody? Drum roll. Okay. All right. Well, the answer is when you don't have customers. That's how you know. That's not from me. That's from our friend Mark Cuban himself. What's I've always loved about Mark Cuban, he's been very consistent in this answer. If you look back from interviews he did 20 years ago, this is still the answer. I saw him do an interview, I think it was like honestly about a month ago. Same exact thing. Customers will let you know when you have something that is marketable versus just an idea, an invention. Neither one of these are bad. It just tells you where you need to go with said idea, with said dream. So today what we're going to do, we're going to talk about why customers are so important to that journey and how you can use that momentum to first maintain more of your company, but then also to grow it and to do all of the things that I know that you're wanting to do. So first and foremost, again, regardless of what type of startup you are hoping to be, I talk to a lot of companies, I talk to a lot of startups, and regardless of whether they have funding, whether they have been bootstrapped, whether they have been crowdfunded, there's one key thing that is true, and it's that customers are the most sustainable pathway to growth. It doesn't matter, if you want to, go growth hockey stick, in the next 12 months and double and triple year over year. Customers are your most sustainable way of getting there. One thing that this current funding environment, but also this current economy is showing us. We're learning this at Zendesk as well, and Zendesk is almost 20 years old. When the economy shifts, that growth at all costs mission turns into retention by all means necessary. So the more that you can recognize that now, the healthier your growth path is going to be, the healthier your company is going to be. And again, if you don't want to believe me, that's okay. That's okay. I love this chart. Well, I don't love this chart because it tells us that startups are failing. That sucks. But this chart is a really great piece of information. This is from CB Insights, and I believe this is from 2022 or 23. But basically, this is an overview of the top reasons that startups fail. Now, some of these are probably not surprising to you. They weren't surprising to me. I'm probably a little biased on this situation because I've been in customer experience facing roles almost my entire career. But if I look at these, I can see at least 3/4 of these that could be solved with customers. Listening to customer feedback. Like, let's think about this. The top one is no market need. No market need. If you have customers, that tells you that there's a need in the market. If you have customers, it tells you when you need to pivot. It tells you when, oh, well, first off, ignoring customers, I think that's pretty obvious, but the poor product, the pricing and cost issues, getting out competed. Think about all of those types of issues and how much you could have gleaned from a customer base instead of just growing an idea and waiting and waiting and waiting until you decide to launch it to the market. So again, I know it's scary to be like, oh, is it ready for market? Try it out. Just try it out. And what's great about that is, if I think about what investors are looking for versus what customers are looking for, investors are actually a lot harder to please, I'm going to be very honest, than customers are, because this is what investors are looking for. They want revenue growth. They want a CAC to LTV ratio that is good. And the reason for that is because they want you to show them that you have a good product market fit. That is so key, that you are able to reach the expectations of your customer base, that you have traction, and that you also have a scalable idea that they're going to be able to get some kind of meat on the bone from your product. And then also, I can see myself in the rest of the slide, but they want to show that you have a competitive advantage. That's what that revenue growth and that acquisition to lifetime value to retention, that's what that's indicating for them, is that you actually have a viable business. So those are very almost intimidating things. But what's really great about customers is that they just want two things. They just want somebody to meet their expectations so that they can go on about their day. That's all. They want responsiveness and they want quick and easy fixes, even if the problem is not quick and easy. So it's so fascinating to me as I've gone through, talked to a variety of different companies, just how many of them will say something like, oh, well, we go above and beyond for our customers. That's our customer service. We deliver white glove customer service. And when you break it down, and I ask them, okay, tell me what that means. And most of them give me gobbledygook. They keep repeating something similar to that. And then I realized they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about or what their customers need because they've just gotten so used to those sound bites. So if you boil it down, and I got the data, I got the receipts to back this up, really all people want is just to get on with their day, keep using your product or your service, and keep it moving. Sounds easy, right? No big deal. All right, we got this. So the reason that I bring all of this up first is because I want you all to be able to iterate on this amazing part of your journey that you have thus far. And in order to do that, in order to start establishing yourself as a viable, scalable company that has traction in the market, you have to understand the market. It can't just be about your individual business then and exactly what you're going after. You have to understand how everything fits together. And there's honestly, I boil it down very simply. If only everybody could do this. It's so easy. But no, there's three things that I always look for. It relates to customer experience, but honestly, I've been able to extrapolate this across the kind of the overarching business plan. One, it's consolidating as much as you can into one place in your early days, not Gmail, but into one place so that you actually have a holistic view of your business. The second comes with automating and prioritizing while staying human. Now, if you're playing a drinking game at home, I've not said AI yet, but let's talk about AI. I know because because I actually AI is one of my favorite topics to present on, especially in a startup's realm. It's very important, but I'm a huge advocate of making sure that you're doing it in the right place. And just as Paul Graham would say, like you should not like you should do things that don't scale, and you should not like efficiency yourself out of your key differentiators. And so we're going to talk about when it makes sense to automate and prioritize and leverage AI, which is such a great tool for doing that, while also staying human and maintaining your key differentiators as you disrupt the market that you're going into. And then lastly, telling a story. That part is so key. And we're going to talk about how to do that with data and also with humans. Isn't that great? Do something with humans. And I'll stop right there. I see some conversation in the chat. Am I missing anything awesome? Feel free to shout out if I am.
You're good, Sam. I am just going to collect any questions that come through. So I'm getting some direct questions and I'll just collect them and then have them, talk about it at the end.
Awesome. I love it. I'm super excited for the discussion at the end. Y'all have some really, really great questions all the time. Cool. All right. So let's talk about step one. Consolidating all of your communications in one place. A lot of times I get to talk to people before they even know what Zendesk is, and that's pretty cool because they'll be like, "Oh, what is Zendesk?" And then I'm like, "Oh, well, we're a CX platform." And then they're like, "What is CX?" I'm like, "That's actually a really great place to start." Good question. And so if we boil it down into thinking about all of the different places that you talk to customers everywhere, whether that is in person, whether that is on a chat, whether it's email, whether it's over TikTok, wherever you want to talk to customers, think about all of the different places that means you have to check. There is one thing that no investment fund can help you with. No one can give you time back in your day. I wish that would be so cool if I could share, do some kind of equity share and like get time back in my day and extend it. That would be fantastic, but that's not the case. So the more that you as a founder have to go to all of these different places, make sure that you are connecting with not only customers, but investors, all of these key people in your network that you need to keep in one place. That's a lot. And one of the most important things is just finding a tool that consolidates all of that conversation into one place. not only is that important just for an accountability standpoint and for a time saving standpoint, but also something that I tell all of my team members that's so key is pattern recognition. And I believe that the best founders that I've talked to, the best people, honestly, in the startups ecosystem, they understand patterns. And once you get everything in one place, you can start to see patterns emerge that you might not have recognized before. And so I like to bring this up when I talk about market size and proximity, because that those two words can mean so many different things. And you want to be able to show potential investors that you actually understand your TAM, your SAM, maybe even your SOM. Like, you want to be able to show that, but then also think about all of the addressable market that you might not have recognized if you didn't pick up on those patterns because you have your communications in a lot of different places. So it's a simple thing of just connecting all of your methods of communication in one place so you see them in one column. And then after that, that really is where accountability comes in. So again, it would be very easy to AI the shit out of this and just set up a bot and, have people, I guess, know or don't know that they're talking to a bot or whatever. I don't know. Bots are, to me, kind of old. They're kind of washed up. But what I do love is something that Scott Galloway over at NYU, obsessed with this guy, but he's for several years now made a really great point about the best companies that leverage AI in the best ways. And it's honestly to make their humans better. And so that's what I love to see in terms of AI and automating and prioritizing. Your differentiator is you. It's your perspective on how you're going to disrupt whatever market you're going into. If if you start automating that away, well then what are you doing? Like, you might as well just, I don't know, go be an AI robot. Like, it there's so many other ways that you can automate and make your life more efficient. So my recommendation, after you're able to consolidate all of your information into one place, start organizing it in a way that makes you more accountable, not only to your customers, who, as I said, remember, all they want is a quick response time and accountability. Make sure that you can automate your communications and reminders and things in a way that helps you prioritize the ones that are top of your bucket, that are the most urgent, either from a profile type of way, like, is this a VIP, or from an urgent perspective. And that type of organization, that type of skill, then becomes your differentiator to either any investors that you are looking to bring on, or to your customers. They don't know, they can't put their finger on how you're different, but then you just start rising through the ranks. So that's also key. And then, like I said, lastly, telling your story is so important, and there's going to be two components of that. There's going to be the data side of things, and you need a all of your data kind of put into one place. That's again what's so key, to have all of the communications in one place, because again, patterns start to emerge. You're able to easily collect all of that metadata and really slice and dice, understand your ideal customer profile, understand where you miss, understand how you're better than your competitors. All of those things will emerge, but that's only telling one side of the story. The things that get us the most as humans uh is when I say, can I tell you a story? Can I tell you a story? And I will say that just hearing that idea of a story literally makes neurons fire off in our brains. Yes, we want to hear the story. We want to hear your story. We want to hear your customers. We want to hear the lives of the people that you've improved. That's really what gets us. And so having everything in one place, being able to keep up with that, that helps you kind of like pick out those individualized nuggets of gold that you can then show not only your investors, but also you can leverage those customers. It's called advocacy marketing. You can leverage those into stories to bring more customers on board. So these are the types of things that a lot of founders that I talk to don't start thinking about until after they have customers. But so many investors I talk to want to see those types of things to show that this is a viable idea. So again, reporting is so important. The things that you wouldn't necessarily think to slice and dice. We hear all of the CAC to LTVs, the EBITDAs, like all of the alphabet soups when it comes to startups, but just being able to hone in on those patterns and understand, where are you getting urgent issues? Is there a market fit? Do you have a need to pivot? Are you having repeat customers? Ooh, that retention piece, that loyalty piece, right now, that's gold. So being able to report on that and then pick out the stories is going to be super, super important. So, yeah, basically I wanted to spend the rest of our time just chatting through. I know you all have some really great questions, so I'll stop sharing there. Should we just get into questions and see where it goes?
Yeah, folks, if you have any questions that you want to put into the chat directly, we can do that, or you can raise your hand. And while you guys are thinking about specific questions that you'd like Sam to answer, Sam, I'm happy to sort of jump in with some questions that we got during registration.
I love it.
There's one that's actually interesting on how many customers is enough to know that I have traction. Like what's like a good number of customers
Oh,
to think of as like a starting point.
I love it. So if the person who asked that is here, feel free to jump in and say hello, and we can talk about your specific context. But otherwise, I can give some general pieces of advice. Give a second. Bueller, Bueller. Does anybody remember that reference? Is that, oh God, am I so old that it's Ferris Bueller? Anyway, um, yeah, okay. So how many customers before you have traction? I know that there is an economist, a data scientist, somebody in the platform community that will give a much more beautiful answer than I will. But what I will say is that it's going to depend, and you're going to hear me say that a lot because it depends on your industry. It depends on what kind of customer you want to serve, and it depends on honestly your run rates and a lot of things like that. Let me give you an example. So I at Zendesk, for example, I have worked with our top 100 customers, and I've worked with our bottom 1,000 customers. And what I mean by that, I mean by our by revenue. So our top 100 customers account for, I don't know at this point what percentage, but let's just say, like it's basically 80-20. So we have about 20% of our customers that account for over half or like actually probably more than that of our revenue. And then it's flipped if you look at our velocity business, which is a lot of much smaller accounts. So I say that because you have to decide what you want your revenue model to look like. Do you want to have a few larger enterprise customers that are going to pay the bills and get you where you need to go? Or is your business built on what we would call velocity? So a lot of much, much smaller accounts, but a lot more of them. There's pros and cons to both approaches. So for example, if you have a few customers, but they bring in a lot of your revenue, it's going to suck if you lose one. You're going to feel it a lot more than if you lose one of a velocity customer. However, if you have systematic problems that make you lose a lot of your smaller velocity customers, then that's going to also be felt. So you're going to have to decide for your business. But what I will say is the right number is when you can show, you know what, we've got enough revenue coming in. First off, if you've got revenue coming in, great job. Talk to a lot of startups that aren't at that point yet. But if you have that coming in and you're able to like start covering the operational overhead, there's a lot of different rules of 50, rules of 25, 40, all of the different things, but that's kind of that balance that you want to hit. Like it's great if you have a lot of customers, you got revenue coming in, but if you have a lot of overhead, then how much of that is profit? Is that an okay answer? I could go on forever and ever. Feel free to reach out to me after this and we can nerd out about this all you want.
I love it. Thank you. Um, you talked a little bit about advocacy marketing. I want to actually double click a little bit on that because I meet founders all the time that are at the super early stage, and they may have, they're testing out their products, and they're trying to, maybe they have some sort of evidence of demand, which is maybe they have 2 or 3 customers that they're sort of building for. But I love how you talk about trying to use that early set of customers for marketing. Can you maybe share what's an effective way of doing that? Or like what are some, talk a little bit about how you can use that early set of customers to be your biggest advocates, and how that can tell a really engaging, compelling story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So advocacy marketing, I'm telling you, Google this and you will find all kinds of awesome stuff on this. Coming from, like, I was a customer of Zendesk myself, and so I feel like it kind of comes from my own bones of, if I have if there is a brand that I love, like, I probably in an unhealthy way like love the brands that I love. It's Red Bull, it's Zendesk, it's those. But we should all be striving to get customers to that level. And I will say that if you can hit on that in your early days and get that going, whew, when you are a multinational conglomerates of people, like, that is key. So I like to think of it in terms of, like, I'm in the world of customer success. So if you're not familiar with customer success, it's basically a fancy way of saying retention. It's a fancy way of saying, how do we get our customers to actually use our product and stay with us and buy more? Novel concept. And so as I've studied customer success and the different methodologies that I've kind of built up to like have my own customer success philosophies, I keep coming back to this idea of forming habits, and what goes into forming habits. Because if we think about it, retention is just a way to form a habit of using something, or basically using something. So the part of the customer journey that everybody forgets about. Everybody thinks that the customer journey ends when you close the deal, when you get them to give you money, and that's that. But I encourage all of the people that work for me to think about what happens after that. I call it reinvesting of their time, because basically science has shown us that if you are reinvesting something back into a relationship, whether that's time, money, effort, whatever, we got you hooked. So I say that because if you think about it, that's really effective way of making sure that you're able to pull those advocates out of your business, like appealing not only to customers before they buy. We do a lot of research on the ideal customer profile to sell into, but then we don't do as much research on why do I love Red Bull as much as I do? What components of Sam Chandler from Atlanta should Red Bull look into to find other people with those components and say, hey, we love you, and like we're welcoming you into our community. Like it feels like a community. It feels like you're part of the cool kids club. There's not enough companies that do that kind of thing. And what I found is that if you can appeal to basically the id, like the psychology of feeling like you are contributing to your tribe, to yourself, like getting to that emotional state, when you've hit that, it like I don't want to say it should be exploited, it shouldn't, but like I'm honored when I get to that point with my customers in that relationship. And so I say all that because in terms of advocacy marketing, like if you are able to find those early customers that have have been like helped or just love your brand so much, they are happy to talk for you. And what's great is like you're helping them through your by basically giving them opportunities to present, to be published, like so it's a recurring iterative of process that kind of feeds the engine of them feeling the love, them feeling the loyalty, and then also you being able to kind of sprinkle that love on new customers to show them. And then the last thing I'll say is that there are a lot of data points that show that consumers don't trust companies as much as they trust other consumers. So just kind of like leveraging all of those things that it like what it means to be a human can actually help you gain and retain the customers you have. Does that help? Did that make sense?
I think so. And I think, I mean, the only thing I'll add also from an investor lens is when we're talking to early stage founders, it's actually very impressive when they say, okay, I have this, this one customer or this two customers, and we're listening to them and we're building for them and we're sort of iterating our product and sort of constantly working through. So even not only from a business and sales perspective, but also from a product perspective, listening to your customers and creating that, kitchen cabinet of, like 4, 5, 10, 15, whatever early stage customers that you can constantly keep bouncing your new features with and getting feedback on is also a really good story to be able to tell when you decide to start pitching for investment. So,
Absolutely.
um, so yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Uh, if anyone has questions, this is great. You have her live. Like, raise your hand, ask your question, make use of this time. Talk about your business. Like, bring those questions in, bring your problems in. I really want to make take full advantage. Yep, we have a question. We have a raised hand. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but feel free to come off of mute.
Hi,
Newsy? Newsy?
Ngozi.
Good.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. Learning a lot here. I wanted to know, like, what does the approach change, or how do you suggest in terms of people who are B2B and B2C? Because when you talk about velocity, it's quite different with like huge enterprise customers or even just small businesses versus like B2C when you may have like 10,000 people you're dealing with.
You are so correct. I am so glad you brought that up. Yeah, it does make a difference. And I'm gonna use AI as a great example of this. So again, drinking game, if you're playing along, I think that's the third or fourth time I've said AI. Something that I've noticed is that B2B has a much different appetite for AI and AI adoption and implementation than B2C. A great example of this would be the Jennifer Coolidge Super Bowl ad for Discover. I don't know how many of you have seen that. It's one of my favorite ads because I am obsessed with Jennifer Coolidge since honestly, even before Legally Blonde. But anyway, and she said, like, she's on the phone with Discover and she's like, oh, you robots are getting more human every day. And then they ask her, well, like, how how do you prove that that you're not a robot? She's like, well, how do I prove that I'm not? And so that to me shows where we are as consumers with our fears of AI. I have a whole thing that I have with it involves Tom Cruise, it involves movie monsters, a presentation I give about why we feel like that and why we're all anxious about AI as consumers. Not going to bore you with that today, but what I will say is that what I have noticed is that B2B companies are so much more accepting of things like chatbots and very obvious AI, whereas consumers are like, I don't want this. And I just thought it was so fascinating that Discover, a very, very large enterprise company, would use a marketing tool like that to say, you know what, we're investing in the human experience. I know for a fact that Discover leverages AI in a lot of different parts of their customer journey, but they recognize that their customer is not interested in knowing about that. It's not like a secret. It's just that like they're not leaning into that. So I use that as an example because you're absolutely right. You should understand who your customer is. Who is your ideal customer profile, but also who is the buying persona. What I have found in B2B organizations is that it's often led by a CFO. Well, I don't want to say often. It can be. It depending on what your product looks like. You're gonna have people like that. You're gonna have C staffers who deal with IT and security and things like that. So they're going to be much more interested in different components of your product. If you are a consumer-based product, not going to be like that. So knowing your customer, understanding their journey is absolutely key to that. And you are so right that B2B versus B2C makes such a difference. I'll stop there because again, we could go into different paths based on, different types of questions. But if anybody wants to nerd out about that later, you know where to find me. Or you will, by the way, I have my contact information.
Okay, any other questions? Raise your hand. I'm just gonna go back to something else someone asked around good ways to collect customer feedback. You mentioned some tools when you were talking about it in your deck. Do you have any specific tools that you recommend? Yeah, what would you suggest for, plus early stage founders that may not be looking to spend a lot of money on CX right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people, when they think of customer feedback, they automatically think of customer satisfaction surveys, or CSAT, as we call it in the industry. That's helpful. I have an exercise that I call CSAT whispering, which basically is going through the comments that you receive from very simple, like, did this help? What did you like? We've all had a customer satisfaction survey before. The scoring to me is never as important as what the comments say, because I will tell you, it doesn't take very, very many CSAT survey comments to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. So if you have something like that right now, I don't care what it's with. Zendesk has something awesome, but there are so many ways that you can literally create your own, whether that's a Google form, whether it's like a MailChimp outreach. Like, again, we all know how to do those things. What I would encourage you to do is, yeah, the score is great, cool, but look at the comments. Look at what people are not saying. Think about the types of words that they're using. Again, it's all about pattern recognition. You'll start that pattern will emerge very quickly. The other thing that I would say is, I think back to Henry Ford, and I think back to when he said, if we ask people what they want, they'll say faster horse. I don't actually, by the way, know if he actually said that, but I'm going to say he did. A lot of times there's a lot of benchmark feedback, or a lot of benchmark data. Like even Zendesk, we do a lot of surveys of like customers, consumers, and also business owners. And one thing that we capture is what people say that they will do. Now, we know that there's a difference in what we say we'll do or how we would react versus what we actually do. What I like to do, yes, that kind of feedback is important. Would you buy this? Would you do this if you had it available? But I also like to look at reviews. That will also tell you what people are actually doing. Also social is terrifying and also good for this. Just seeing what the market is showing. What are people saying? How are they saying it? That will help you determine like what holes are there in the market, what is actually working, like those kinds of things. That is where I would start. It's not expensive, but that, I mean, for me it's time consuming because I like to do it myself, but there are AI options, hey, that will drinking game that will help you do that. Does that help? I can give like specific platforms, but honestly, it doesn't matter as long as you have the content and the words.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, last question that I have from the registrations is on hiring. And it's not specifically CX related, but
I love it.
happy to chime in here. Any recommendations on how I can find and hire a director of marketing in the healthcare space, and generally hiring advice for the early stage in the marketing space?
Oh, this is so important. So, I will disclaimer, I don't have a marketing background. I know people that are in that space and I can introduce you to a lot of folks in that space. Actually, the person that asked this, if you DM me, if it's healthcare, I actually have a couple of contacts that I can connect you to. The reason I love this question so much is because hiring, especially right now in kind of like this like weird air that we're in. I don't know if you all are feeling it on LinkedIn too, but it's so key. And what I would stress to you as a founder, regardless of what role you are hiring for, know what you need. And if you don't know what you need, that's okay. Talk to someone who does know what you need. Whether that is someone a Grandma Walker, whether that is a mentor that you trust, whether it's an advisor, wherever you find that, talk to somebody that has been there so that you hire the right level and you hire the right skill set for what you need. There have been a lot of times that I've talked to not only founders, the companies are the companies of all sizes are kind of guilty of this, where like director of marketing, well, you said as an example, that can mean a lot of different things. What I will say is like as you go upstream, like into very high level enterprise, you have very like you have marketing, but then you have very interesting categories that are underneath that. And so if you're hiring for somebody that's, can do life cycle marketing or can do social or can do uh any one of these aspects, but in actuality, you needed somebody that could do very top of funnel brand awareness, then you're going to get a mismatch. The other thing that I will say, like in addition to understanding what level that you need to bring in, of like their expertise, know what level of leader you need to bring in. So for example, like can you get away with an advisor that can create a plan that you give to a marketing manager to execute? Maybe that's an option. Is it better for you to get a higher level individual who is going to be able to build out that plan for you and execute it versus like getting somebody that is a bit more earlier in their career that will not be able to strategize that? If don't sell that poor person early in their career on this is a great opportunity and we're gonna go. Like if you need the expertise, then you should get the expertise that you need and just let them do their thing and make sure that you can work with them. So those things, and then the other thing that I will say, something I'm seeing in the industry across workspaces in general that we need more people that know how to lead, that know how to manage. That is a skill set in and of itself. So if you are looking for somebody that is going to be basically in an IC, an individual contributor role, and you need them to have that title, but they're only going to be kind of managing themselves, that's cool. That's one thing. If you have a team of anybody that they're going to be managing, you better make sure that they actually know how to manage, because otherwise you're going to lose all of your great people and you're going to end up in a weird world of hurt. So those are my general thoughts on hiring anybody and bringing anybody onto your team. And also think about, like, maybe it is time for you to bring on a full-time person, but there are also other options and resources available to startups that maybe you don't need that yet. So come talk to me about the specifics of your individual situation. I probably know people that can recommend some good people, but yeah, knowing what phase you are hiring for is super, super key.
I really love that and appreciate that, because I think with any hiring decision that you make in this, as a startup, is it's all key, because you're such a small team. Sometimes you're one person, maybe you have, like, one other person. Like, every hire is so important, and being
Oh,
super thoughtful about your job description, and taking the time to really put out there all the things that you need this person to do and communicate, that will attract the right, candidate. So I think that's, yeah, just
I'm so glad you said that. I'm gonna put into the chat. This is job descriptions are so important. I love that company. So I don't remember how I found them, but a couple of years ago, I was not getting the right candidate. I was looking for like a scaled customer success manager position. And I'm like, why am I not getting the right candidates? And then I talked to my team and they're like, well, have we updated the job description like ever? And I'm like, y'all, good point. So we broke down. We just nuked the whole thing and we started over again. And I asked them, I was like, what do you do day to day? What is important to know about this? And then I peppered in, this is what I want this person to do. These are the skill sets that I need to bring to the team. I think of my team as megazords. So like separately, they're like really awesome little dinosaurs, but when they come together, like they're fighting Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed's not getting through. So like those soft skills and those personality traits, they need to be able to mesh. The other thing that was really key to me was making sure that we were being equitable and that we were bringing in different perspectives. That is so important. And I will say, if you are not intentional about it, then you're not going to find it. So that site, what I was able to do was we built the general job description that we thought, and then I was able to kind of run it through that. And they were able, like, it's a technology that says, this type of language will appeal to this group, and this type of language, you repeated this. It was really, really helpful. And I will say that, like, it made the entire candidate experience so much better. And I got a 4x increase on qualified candidates who were incredibly diverse. And honestly, like, that was several years ago. And I still attribute that to my experience with Texio. So
thank you
I
for.
recommend that one.
Okay, we have one last question before we wrap, and this is by from Kelly. Kelly, if you want to, ask it yourself, feel free to. Otherwise, I'm happy to share. She asks, what's one strategy you've seen the best companies use to get their first customers and retain them? So, any
Mm.
favorite strategies that you want to share for first customers?
To get the first customers, I think that most of the founders that I know, they leverage their network and they kind of like, it's almost like a proof of concept type of thing where there's a couple I'm thinking of, they have different AI tools that they've done a case study with a company. They say, okay, well, we think that we can improve, this part of your business by X%. Let's do a case study. Let's, try it out, use it. and then you tell us what happened from there. And then, a couple months later, they have actual data to show, and they are able to, again, thinking about telling that story with humans and with data, they're able to say like, look, this is what happened in this situation. So again, thinking of that from like, okay, now you have like the proof of concept, then you can take that and kind of market that in a way that allows you to pick up on social feeds and allows you to kind of amplify that. So I would say like your first customers are probably going to be the people around you, even if it's like family members, like even if it's people that I don't know who so the fact that like them, that doesn't hurt your cause at all. And so what I would say is like, starting small, making sure that you're building that proof of concept and then kind of amplifying that. It's I'm making it out to be very easy. It's not. It takes a lot of follow-up, a lot of grit, but that's where I would say to start. Oh wait, I think
Thank
you're
you.
on mute.
Uh, thank you
Thank you
so
so
much
much.
for sharing your feedback. I think I was a little bit, as a founder, I was a little bit concerned about like starting with my network. I'm like, okay, I didn't come from this field. I was a school principal. I switched, and my network is a little different. And so I really do appreciate that. I can really kind of lean on friends and family to kind of get those first customers with my new product. Prior to that, I used TikTok, and I would like spend a lot of time just watching thousands upon thousands of videos during the pandemic. And I just started making tables of the comments that people were making because my product is a consumer product. And so I kind of used that initially, but I kind of shied away from friends and family as much just because I thought it was going to skew the data or make me look like, oh, you're not serious. But I appreciate that. I didn't think about it that way. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, first off, props to you. I love looking through comments. I've done that with Airbnb too. We won't get into nerding out on that, but I completely agree with you. Understanding what people are saying. The other thing too, like after you have a proof of concept, you can take it to like an influencer. You can take it to somebody to be like, hey, do you want to just try this out for free? But you want to make sure that it's actually going to work first. So that's why I'm like, try it out with people that or your ideal customer base. Like, where are they? And then going to that place and be like, hey, does anybody want to try this out? Like the communities in Graham and Walker, like I would leverage those. I would
Yeah.
leverage all of the places that I know to be like, hey, who wants to try this out?
I would totally, I love that. I mean, if you're part of the community already, you probably have access to the Slack. Go to communities, go to Slack groups, and say, hey, I'd love to have like 5 people raise their hand to test my product. Tell me what you think. Here's what I'm looking for. And just have people sign up to try it for free. Like that is one way to test your product. We are on time also at time, so I want to make sure I'm respectful of our other meetings people may have, as well as you, Sam. Thank you so much for joining us. Here is Sam's information if you guys are looking at your screen. S. Chandler at Zendesk, and you can connect with her on LinkedIn. And as you all know, we host forums like these every month, so look out for the next one in our newsletter or on social media. And thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure. You all are an amazing group, and I look forward to all of my friendships with you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a good rest of
Bye.
your day.